doing as I believe a quote-unquote good YouTuber would. I have taken a long look at the analytics, and it looks as though the types of videos that people are really watching and sharing and are interested in have a lot to do with my medical journey, my career journey. And I was inspired to go back and do this because despite feeling very self-conscious about how work has affected my health because of I allowed it to, and how health has affected my career trajectory. And sometimes just being seen or heard or identified with can be helpful. So I guess that's what we're going to do today. My name is Kashmir, and this is Kashmir Thoughts. Welcome from the depths of quarantine. And yes, today I am a walking, talking TikTok transformation. Are you loving it? Can you recognize me? I don't. Here, where's Bobby? Come here, Bobby. Come here, Bobby. Get up here. Get up here, Bobby. Oh, okay. Hi. I haven't eaten anything. I drank some chai. Okay. October 31st, 2019, it was Halloween that I had my 2-year checkup for my kidney transplant. At the year mark, you get several different tests that are different from your every 3-month or 6-month checkup. I walked into that meeting, that appointment, just feeling super normal and a little bratty. It was Halloween. I wanted to get out. I had a couple of parties I wanted to hit up. I didn't go to any of them, but plans feel good. And I got in there and they were running late, and so I didn't have any questions about my health because I felt great and life was great. Summer was tough, but I was looking forward to some holidays and having a good time, etc. So my only question to my doctor, strangely enough, was, so when do I get to remove my fistula? Can it be covered by insurance? Is it cosmetic? How much is it in general? I'm talking the most superficial ever questions. And it was interesting because a week later, I ended up getting another call and stepping out of the office and going to the phone/smoking tree in the parking lot. And I got news that I could barely comprehend. When the nurse practitioner was telling me about the test results that they only do once a year, which is to basically test how many antibodies your body has created against your kidneys. Your antibodies need to remain incredibly low, and there are very specific types that are created when your body starts to affect or attack the foreign organ. My counts were about 24,000, 25,000. You want those counts to be 0, but 8,000 is what is livable. So with a count that's about 3 times what it should be or could be for the sake of my kidney, we immediately made an appointment to go into the hospital for a kidney biopsy. And the biopsy was an interesting experience. It was definitely a bigger deal than I thought it was going to be. I went into the hospital. You do the whole rigmarole of getting checked in, going to different floors, getting checked in again, giving your information about every time you see a new person. And food's here. Let's go get food. It's mad late. I'm going to bed. Tomorrow, I swear, we start earlier. Hell, we might even redo the beginning. You might get 2 looks in a video. Why? Because you're lucky. You're welcome. Good night. Hi. It's the next day. And, it's still equally late. And I'm still having trouble with the topic, but we're doing it. We will do it regardless. We're gonna get through this. So to pick up where we left off, basically I was in the process of getting a kidney biopsy, which is once you go through all the rigmarole and you finally get into the operating room, the procedure is relatively simple. It is just, you use an ultrasound guided needle. Simple, relatively speaking. And you remove a portion of the kidney. Yes, it causes damage, but it also allows us to measure, to measure the amount of damage done to the most delicate part of the kidney that actually does the blood filtration. The one thing I didn't realize about that process was that it was going to be so much more both painful and difficult to recover from than I initially thought. I'm in the waiting room. I was there for, I had no idea it was going to be a 4-hour or to 6-hour wait. I really thought that I was going to be in and out. Everyone kept asking, do you have somebody with you? Or did you drive yourself? How do you plan on getting home? And I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. Nobody told me that I had to have somebody with me or shouldn't have driven my own car. I get home, I'm in considerable pain and annoyed at the lack of information I received, but it's fine, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to go to work the next day. Oh man, this was the most frustrating part. So I stay off of work the next day because it was, like I said, a considerably more difficult procedure than I thought it was going to be. And this is the super frustrating part. I stay up all day. I called them. I'm just waiting to find out what the next step is. I'm taking the day off of work because if I get a call in the middle of the day, later on in the evening, whatever, if I'm told that I have to go into the hospital and start dealing with this, I wanted to be able to do that with as little explanation as possible, if at all possible. And so stayed up the whole day, did stuff, and around 4, maybe 3 o'clock, I fall asleep. Had a big meal, me and my dog hanging out watching a movie, and I fall asleep. And when I wake up, it is 4:40 p.m. Everything closes at 5. I have no less than 10 messages on my phone. And I proceed to freak the fuck out. But the problem was that I had started blocking spam literally days before. Unrecognized numbers, repeated calls, I'd block them. Unfortunately, UCLA will only call you from a non-caller ID number or a generic number, and specifically the doctors, they'll call you from an unidentified number. And so none of those calls came through. What ended up happening was I got a text from my job that was like, the hospital's calling you. And if I hadn't gotten that text, I would not have received the one little ding that actually woke me up from my nap. And so, full freak out mode, I am calling the doctor's office frantically so I can get in touch with someone for the next 20 minutes of what's going on, to find out what's going on. I could not get in touch with anyone at the Connie Frank. They're fantastic, but it's 4:40 and they've been doing this since probably 5 a.m. in the morning. Things slow down, people check out, etc. And so I did what I thought would be the second best thing to do. I called the ER. called the ER, and I said, because that's what happens. If they are going to hospitalize you, under most circumstances, you will go through the ER. They will contact the kidney doctors, and then from there you'll get a room. It's the longer procedure. It's what you do literally in an emergency situation, if it's after hours, after calling the emergency line. And so, like I said, I called the ER. They had no record that I'd be going through there. So I asked their advice, and I said I was just going to come right on in. And they said, okay, give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find the kidney doctor who's on call. And they called him. He responded relatively quickly. The first call went unanswered. The second time I called, having paged, he was able to respond. It's a hospital. He's the only renal doctor probably over this holiday weekend who's working. He's has no clue about what's going on with me. And he might have a list his arm long that he's already dealing with before this random person called. You're in a queue. And so so when he did finally call back, he said, all right, come on through the emergency room. I'll try to get in contact with somebody, and we'll see if we can get a bed ready for you. So I did as I was told, headed over to the hospital, and I was going to be checked in. And so I get to the hospital, goes relatively quickly, so much so that by the time I go in, I'm not waiting in the emergency room, I'm going directly to be checked in. I head upstairs, and things slow way down after that. I am given my regular meds. I check into my room. It's a pretty, unfortunately, well prepared and practiced experience for me to be in the hospital. I have brought 4 to 5 outfits that are leisure lounge wear, because if I can get away with not wearing that gown, I'm not wearing that gown. Extra blanket, extra pillows, because I realize between dialysis and hospital stays or anywhere I am, I can be at home if I have my blanket and my pillow. We proceeded to go through the first steps of what you do when your kidney is going into failure. And it started with your regular doses of medication, and then increased doses of that same medication. Super high dose of prednisone, 100 milligrams, boom, first and foremost. This is not the same dosage as what would be in a pill. It is done via IV, and I was hype. Like, it absolutely mimics somebody going through what might be a manic episode. I got on the phone with my family, and we were talking, and it was loud, and I cleaned my room, and it was loud and probably inappropriate and obnoxious, and I think I got into a slight fight with my sister, like play fight, but I was really kind of pissed off because she really rubbed me the wrong way. But everything's exaggerated when you're on like prednisone, or a steroid like that at that level. They doubled the medication that I was on, called Myfortic, and that's another anti-rejection drug. I mean, from that first night, that's all I can really remember. Besides feeling like a little bit embarrassed the next day at how loud I was and how quiet this floor is in the middle of the night. But it was fine. I was up relatively late, and I knew I'd be awakened relatively early as well. I tried to get a rundown of what the plan was. I don't think I saw a doctor that night, and that's not strange. That is, it was frustrating to feel like we were going through that hurry up and wait, where I rushed over there, I got into the room, and it was just, all right, you're here now, settle in, we'll take it from here. And part of all of that adrenaline makes you want to be like, okay, right, so what do we got to do? Let's start, let's fight this. And it's really just take these pills, let me take your blood pressure and temperature, and chill for a minute. I don't chill. I don't think I've chilled since 1989. I was 4. And even then, nap time could be, you know, you can multitask. When I did finally see a doctor the next morning, we talked about what the actual procedures would be and hopefully some idea of the timing. Mornings are an episode when you're in the hospital. And this, I believe, is universal. You are awakened between 3 and 4 a.m. in the morning. They will unceremoniously switch on your lights, drag in a scale, and they will take your weight, your blood pressure, your temperature. You might not get your morning meds, and you will get your blood drawn. It is a fun way to wake up every day. Exhausting and horrific. They will then turn off the lights and say, all right, you try to get some more rest. And you don't ask them if they're crazy, but you're like, oh, okay, all right, we'll do that. Of course you don't sleep. 7 a.m., the chatter of the interns and etc. start, and the rotations begin. I believe, if I'm correct, the rotation there's obviously variations, was my doctor. I wouldn't call him he was a resident. He came in by himself. Really nice chap is what I would say. I think we mentioned, the tattoo that I'd used to cover up my kidney transplant scar. Very calm, very balanced, and relatively in and out. But once again, this person doesn't have answers to my questions as to how we are going to go about the treatment schedule. So, it's all right. Thank you, sir. Great job with what you've done. I've given you my whole life. I'm ready to tell it 10 more times. Send the next one in. It's really that simple. They don't just send them in. Unfortunately, they leave and they mosey in whenever they're ready. The next group of people was probably hematology and oncology. They were the team who were going to help me figure out what I was going to do as far as plasmapheresis is concerned. It's basically the removal of the plasma from your blood, where they will then be able to not just remove the plasma, but also take out those antibodies, which might be around the same specific gravity. And when those are removed, it is replaced with albumin. And so there are a lot of side effects of that. You could have, your calcium can drop like crazy, you could have issues with, consciousness, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they discussed what the schedule would be for that, getting the plasmapheresis, how many sessions they'd have, and what they'd be measuring on a daily basis that would indicate the length of my stay in the hospital, or at least the number of these particular therapies. He walks over to the side of the bed. I was very amused by him for the whole time there. He's very much a funny, smart guy. He comes over and he feels your arm. And it's such a strange gap in the way that people react inside and outside of the hospital to this monstrosity. Like, people in the hospital, doctors, nurses, everyone who comes by, they're like, oh, and they feel it and they're like, oh my gosh, what a great thrill. Oh, you have to keep that. It's like, yeah, thanks, I will. This ugly mutation on my body, I'm glad it excites you. But you remember me saying in the very beginning that the first thing I talked to my doctor about on that same appointment where we find out my kidneys have gone into rejection was, do you think we can get rid of this? I feel like it'd be so much prettier without it. And thank God they didn't get rid of it, because when the doctor came over, he was like, oh, this makes life so much easier. We are going to be able to use this access to be able to do the plasmapheresis, and it'll go faster, because with this monstrosity, not only do you have an access that goes directly to the major veins and arteries so that you can move blood quickly and with a greater volume, but having access to this makes it a less painful procedure as well. You're not sitting there in a way that you can't move. Like, this old girl's been through some stuff, and she can handle the worst of it. But like I said, sucks I won't ever be able to get rid of her. Because no matter what, in 25 years, if I'm lucky, especially after this, I'll be right back on dialysis. That's another 8 years to wait. But I think those are just realities you have to come to grips with as early on as possible so that you're not feeling that frustration all the time. You've got to just be really happy and really excited and really take advantage of the time you have now. Tangent.